Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Her Space Unscripted. As always, I'm your host, Angela, and this week you're stuck with me because our guest unfortunately had to reschedule. Not mad at her. She is out there being a badass as usual, but that does mean that you're stuck with little old me. But you know what? This week, I'm okay with that. I think that this week I really needed to maybe come and vent. I don't know. But hopefully, my venting session helps someone realize that we all deal with some mental health things. We all deal with moments where we feel less than. And so I'm going to share with you some of my feelings from the last couple of weeks and how I've been dealing with them. And, hopefully it resonates with someone and helps you if you're feeling the same way. Not to spiral, because I was very thankful and proud of myself that I didn't, but I came close. I came close. And I think that was the part that was a little overwhelming to me, actually, is that I have been working on my mental health and, doing therapy and really growing as a woman for quite some time now. I'm talking years. And more recently, in the last couple of years, I would even say in the last year, I have really seen that pay off. I have been able to find a lot of tools to deal with my anxiety, to deal with my overthinking. I've found a lot of tools that have allowed me to find peace and happiness within myself, to set healthy boundaries in my life, to be able to let people just be them and choose who I want in my life and choose what direction I want to take and choose who I'm going to invest my time and energy on and what I'm not going to invest my time and energy on. And that really has been a big shift in my life that has changed everything. It has changed everything for me. And I'm so thankful to be in that space. But the last couple of weeks, I found myself in a all too familiar mental health space that I had lived in for many, many years. And it was a little scary, if I'm being honest, because I haven't felt that way in so long that when I started feeling that way and I started feeling like it was kind of out of control, like I didn't really know what to do. I was feeling very overwhelmed. And so, give some insight. The last couple of weeks, I've just been all over the place. I have been all over the place doing a lot of things. They are all blessings. Every one of them has been a blessing. There has been some bumps and bruises that have happened in my life the last couple of weeks that, personally had to figure out, and some challenges that I had to overcome. Most of which was out of my control, but it still was hard to process through and let go of. But yeah, I think that the last couple of weeks, I noticed that my mental health wasn't as strong and as healthy as it has been the last year or so. And I found myself having to really, really lean into my tools, really, really lean into everything that I've learned over the last couple of years. And so, what does that mean? What did I learn and how did I lean in? Right. And so, I have been working a lot in the last 2 weeks, and I felt like that was affecting my ability to show up for my kids. My daughter was taking a lot of mom responsibilities on in the last couple of weeks, covering for mom, so to speak, right? Picking up my little, helping with dinner, helping around the house, and don't get me wrong, right? Responsibilities and chores are a thing in my house. They always have been, but she was doing way more than that in the last couple of weeks. She was really picking up the ball when mom was dropping it. And I felt so guilty. I wasn't able to show up to a lot of practices and a lot of games. And my son is very used to mom being there, and so he was having a really hard time with it. There was a night where he cried himself to sleep last week when I wasn't here. And when I tell you, ladies, it hurts my soul. It hurts my soul. And so I was feeling like a really, really shitty mom the last week or so. And that is very overwhelming. The most important job in the world to me is being a mom. They are everything to me, right? And so that is the one place that I will not fail at. And so feeling like I was failing at it was so overwhelming. Then there was different things that, somebody had called and they're like, hey, they're here to do this. And I'm like, oh my God, like I didn't even put that on my calendar. Like, I'm so sorry. Like, I'm not even in town. Like, I hate wasting people's time. I hate being the reason why someone else doesn't get their job done. And so that's a real crappy feeling. The podcast, I didn't do the episode last week. I was feeling very overwhelmed by that. And then this week, my guest unfortunately had to cancel. And so that was very overwhelming. And, all the things hit me at once in the last 2 weeks. And I started to really feel overwhelmed. I started to feel very less than. I started to do all those things. And I typically, one of my biggest things that I do for self-care is I do daily check-ins with myself. Even when I'm happy, even when I feel like everything is great and I'm on the top of the world, I do daily check-ins with myself. Usually I plan to show up somewhere 10 minutes early, 15 minutes early, and I sit in my car. Yes, I sit in my car all by myself. If you don't do it, I highly recommend it. I sit in my car and I literally just say, all right, what's up? How's life? What's going on? Sounds crazy. I know. And I literally say it out loud. I know it sounds crazy, but it is the way I process, and it is the way I feel like I show up for myself. I intentionally do that because there are so many times that I do that for everyone else in my life, right? I pull my daughter aside constantly. I pull my son aside constantly. I pull my friends aside constantly. I pull family, the ladies at work. I'm like, hey guys, checking in. How are you? How are things? Right? But I don't do it for myself, or I never did. I do it now. I'm very intentional with it now. For the last year, I check in with myself constantly. And I do it out loud. I tell myself, all right, where are we at? How are we feeling? And I start thinking and I start processing through how I'm feeling. And what I've learned in those moments where I'm checking in, if I am feeling overwhelmed, if I am feeling anxiety, if I'm overthinking, because I'm a huge overthinker, I constantly am thinking. I have like a million files open in this head, guys. Like, it's ridiculous. Whenever I'm doing all that, I do what I call a fact check. I do a fact check. What that means is my feelings, my scenarios, my thoughts. If I cannot attach all of those things to facts, like I'm feeling this way and it's very valid because X, Y, and Z. Or I am thinking this way and it's very valid because X, Y, and Z. You know what? I came up with that scenario. I'm overthinking a bit in that area, but you know what? It is valid. It is based on facts because A, B, and C happen. And, now I'm preparing for X, Y, and Z. So these are facts. And if I can validate all of those feelings with facts, I can sit there and say, okay, how you're feeling is okay, but what are we going to do next, right? And I can process through that. A lot of times, especially with the overthinking, I can never attach facts to my thoughts. I can never say like, oh, I'm thinking that this is going to happen next week and, it's going to happen. I just feel it. But there's no fact today that allows me to validate that overthinking and that thought. I have to be willing to let it go. I know. It is easier said than done. But if it is something that you constantly start practicing in your daily life, and it is something you start constantly practicing for yourself, is being okay with letting these thoughts go. If I cannot validate these feelings, if I cannot validate this overthinking, if I cannot validate these thoughts, when I sit down with myself and I dig a little deep and I'm being honest with myself and I'm checking in with myself, and none of these things are panning out, none of these things are valid, I have to let them go. I have to let them go. And so I did that, last week when I got home from Memphis. I sat down with myself, and I said, okay, like, you're feeling like the world's shittiest mom. And bro, you are by far not a shitty mom, right? And it was like, yeah, it sucked. Yeah, you may not have shown up in the ways that you wanted to this week. All of those things are factual and they may be true. But the one thing that you are not is a crappy mom. And so I had to rethink that and say, okay, there was nothing really I could do. The week was out of my control. I can apologize to my children, and I did. I thanked my daughter for picking up where I failed at last week. She even got a little money out of it. My son, I apologized. I reminded him that there are going to be some moments in his life that mommy's going to have to work or mommy's not going to be present. That doesn't mean that I don't love him. And it doesn't mean that I really, 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 really was sad that I couldn't go. But it's going to happen. And we sat there together and we watched the videos and, we talked about the game and so that was the way that I was able to deal with those feelings. Is I was able to calm my thoughts by attaching them to facts, attaching them to what I know to be true, what I could prove, what I can disprove, and really just being okay with that. And I went to a mentorship the week before last. And so there's this amazing thing. It's called the Deborah Scott Mentorship Dinner. It's where they bring about 200 young women athletes from New Mexico State University into this dinner with a bunch of mentors, a bunch of women in our community that are just doing things. They're showing up. They're, whatever that looks like. And I'm always so thankful and so humble that they always invite me to this dinner. It's honestly one of the most favorite events of the year. It gives me hope because I see all these young, amazing women doing amazing things and just showing up for themselves and for others. It's just my favorite. But anyways, so we go into this dinner and we all have a conversation. We really just, they ask us questions, we ask them questions, we really just get to know each other and have that opportunity to share thoughts and connect. And one of the biggest trends that I noticed that a lot of them asked me was, how do you be okay with not being perfect or like not with failure? How do you be okay? How do you calm the noise? There's coaches, there's teachers, there's parents, there's society. Like, how do you calm the noise and know that you're showing up for yourself in the best way you can, or you're being the best? Like, how do you navigate that? Like, how do you take care of yourself with all the chaos and all the crazy? And that is what I shared with them. I think that self-care is so important, but I do think self-care took a weird turn at some point where self-care became a full-time job. If you're not doing your hair, if you're not doing your nails, if you're not getting the massage, if you're not going to the gym, if you're not waking up at 5 a.m., if you're not journaling, if you're not drinking tea, like there's just this wild idea of what self-care looks like. And I went down that road. Oh Lord, did I go down that road? I remember stressing out about taking care of myself and showing up for myself, right? And so fast forward, it's probably been about 3 years now. And like I told them, self-care has to be how you show up for you. For me, showing up for myself and self-care is those check-ins that I was telling you about, those mental health check-ins, those, just how am I feeling, checking in with myself, what's going on, and the gym. I don't go to the gym for the same reasons now as I did in my 20s, right? In my 20s, I went there and tried to murder myself, basically. It felt like death every time because I was trying to get this certain physique. Now I go to the gym because it genuinely helps my mental health. It helps alleviate stress. I always leave feeling better. I feel like I get to, I feel healthier. I won't lie, I like to see some results. I mean, that's a bonus. But really, it's more for my mental health, and what that looks like. But, also it's to be alone. Oh my God. Like that part is amazing. Going, I put my headphones on, I lock in, I'm alone for a whole hour a day. And so that is something I prioritize. And I used to struggle to prioritize the gym, right? Like if I didn't get there super early, or, I have to try to get there late, or, whatever, like now, no, I go at any time of the day. Like if I only have an hour between 11 and 12, then everyone after 12 is getting the stinky version of myself. Just is what it is. I'll apologize for it later, right? But I don't miss anymore. I plug it in wherever I can, whenever I can, and I prioritize it. If I didn't get to go at 8 a.m. because of a meeting, fine, I will go at 12. If I don't get to go at 12 because of a meeting, I'll go at 4, right? Like I literally put it in the schedule, and I'm stinky me for the rest of the day if that's what it takes. But I am intentional with it because that's how I show up for myself. And so finding those moments to show up for yourself, I think, is the most important. And let me be clear, it can be 5 minutes, you guys. It can be 5 minutes. I have not got to where I am overnight. Um, I have not, I don't know anyone that has, right? Like when I've had the opportunity to meet some of the most amazing people, men and women alike, and I've talked to them and I've had connection with them, and they've always told me the same thing, like a lot of failure, a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of um, little wins that I didn't think mattered until they became big wins, and it was like, oh, damn, that's my life too, right? Like little changes that I have made, or little pivots that I have made, or little choices, or taking advantage of what seemed like a little opportunity. It has all manifested into this amazing life that I'm so blessed to live. And so I think it's important that if every day we show up for ourselves just a little bit differently and a little bit better than we did the day before, that's enough. Because after you do that for so long, you start realizing, that I look back and I'm like, oh, it was 5 minutes. Like I showed up for myself every day for 5 minutes, but it felt so good to do that I intentionally was able to create 10 minutes. And now, like I said, last week was so weird to me because I have not found myself in that spiral in so many years, where I actually was like, oh my God, like I was questioning myself, my worth, my life, my everything. I was questioning everything about myself. And I have not felt like that in a very long time. But again, it was my ability to use everything that I've learned slowly but surely over the last couple of years that allowed me to overcome it, to be okay with it. Because I think that was a little hard for me too, to be okay with the regression that I felt, that I, was disappointed in myself, that I felt it, but I was okay with it. I was able to be okay with it. But I think that over time, all these little things that I have done for myself have just built up to the point where I'm very proud of myself. I'm in a very good space, and I love that I've actually created this space to share those things with you guys, because that is exactly what her space is for. It's not to sit here and somber. It's not to sit here and, look at me, I live this great life. Like, hell no. It is about my ability to be real and honest with myself, and hopefully sharing that with you guys so that you have the ability to be very honest with yourselves, so that we can all find ourselves in a space that we are internally happy. We're not looking for validation from anyone else to be happy. We're not striving for perfection because we think everyone around us is perfect. We don't look to others and think we have to compete or we have to be like them. Rather, I'm living my own journey. I'm living my own life. I think that was the best decision that I ever made was, deciding to invest in myself. And there was a moment when I was like, man, I'm really happy. Like, I have really gotten to the point in my life where I am worthy. I am happy. I am showing up for all these amazing people in these amazing ways, but I'm also showing up for myself. I'm prioritizing what's important to me. I'm setting these amazing boundaries, even when it's freaking is hard, and it is hard. It is hard. But the little things that I've done, I've been able to find myself now saying, I'm happy. I'm happy and I'm at peace. And so I wanted to share that because I know I share a lot of, amazing women, and I love doing that. But I don't often share a lot about myself. And so I took this opportunity to do that and to, just hopefully, if you're out there struggling and you're feeling a little less than today, hopefully this helps, because you can feel less than today and you can be amazing tomorrow. Both things can be true at the same time. Just remember to check in with yourself. Just remember to validate your thoughts, your feelings with facts. Make sure that you take time to show up for yourself the same way you're showing up for everyone else. And yeah, so thank you so much for letting me vent today, and I will see you next time.